dear brothers and sisters, and my beloved gender nonconforming folks. I'm Ama Robin, host of Espresso Talk Today, where we confront the chaos of living Black in predominantly white spaces. And we also find ways to calm, control, and contain that chaos. Today, I'm enjoying my cinnamon coffee while we continue on this journey of Black empowerment and liberation. This month, we've been diving deep into the transformative power of core values. We began by exploring individual core values, how they ground us and guide us in navigating the chaos of living Black in predominantly white spaces. Today, we're going bigger. We're going broader, we're going wider, we're going deeper, we're going louder, we're going bigger. We're talking about collective core values and how they've always been the foundation of Black survival, resilience, and empowerment. And while core values are today often unacknowledged and even undermined, and many times overlooked by white society, they're deeply understood, celebrated, embraced, and lived in Black communities. So, let's dive into what collective core values mean, how they show up in Black communities, and how they complement individual core values. And most importantly, we'll explore how we can honor and live by these values to empower ourselves and future generations. But before we dive in, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you're feeling this show and feeling this collective core value talk, share it with your fam, your crew, your friends, your circle, everyone in your community. Now, grab that coffee, espresso, or tea, and close that door behind you. We're going to get deep and we're going to get real. And I hope that y'all are ready for this. Let's start at the beginning. What are collective core values? Glad you asked. Collective core values are the shared principles, beliefs, and goals that unite a group of people. They influence how communities think, act, and show up in the world. While Western white society emphasizes rugged individualism, the myth of the self-made hero who achieves greatness all alone, Black culture recognizes the power of the collective. Family and community have always been central to our survival and our success. Now, here's a personal example. When my brother Doug and I first started Espresso Talk Today, many Black people that we interviewed were so moved and interested by the fact that this was what they called a family affair. They understood and valued that connection. On the other hand, many non-Black people, primarily white people, found it strange. Some didn't take us seriously. When white people were impressed by the notion of individual heroes, but they didn't see the strength in collective efforts. They didn't see the strength in our family affair. But Black people have always relied on something bigger than themselves to survive and thrive. We recognize that our strength comes not just from who we are individually, that's important, but it comes from communities, families, and collectives that uplift and support us. This reminds me of the African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That's right. Yes. And there's the other one, too, of the reminder that it takes a village to raise a child. You know, these proverbs emphasize the importance of collective values and collective work. We, Black Americans, carry this collective core value mindset with us, too. Let's look at some examples of Black collective core values, and we're going to talk about some of Black collectives. Now, collectives, I'm using that term as a group, community, a group, any kind of a grouping of people. So let's talk about some of these core values that have shaped and sustained Black communities or Black collectives. These values are diverse, yet they all serve the purpose of Black empowerment and liberation. Number one, first and foremost, and I hope that you know which one this is. Number one is, of course, the Black family. The Black family has always been the foundation of our collective strength. Despite centuries of systemic efforts to break Black families apart, from the separation of families during enslavement to mass incarceration and racist and divisive welfare policies, we've held on to shared values like love, resilience, and responsibility. During enslavement, Black families were forcibly torn apart, as children, parents, and spouses were sold off to different plantations and different owners, leaving generations disconnected and grieving. In more recent history, mass incarceration has disproportionately targeted Black men, separating fathers, brothers, sons, from their families, and leaving emotional and economic voids that are difficult to overcome. And yes, these welfare policies have also played a role, often penalizing single mothers for having a male partner present in the household, this discouraging family unity. Additionally, the foster care system frequently removes Black children from their homes at a much higher rate than white children, often placing them in non-Black homes where cultural connections are then lost. These systemic attacks have weakened Black families and communities, creating circles of instability. Meanwhile, white families haven't faced the same kind of racialized threat or divisive policies, or they weren't targeted for this, and they're often upheld as the societal ideal. Despite this, Black families have remained resilient, drawing on collective strength and shared values to sustain and uplift one another through adversity. And this is the nuclear family, yes, but it's also multi-generational and intergenerational families. And this is such a beautiful thing to witness and to see. And personally, that's how I live. That's how I live right now too. And because my mother lives with my husband and myself, and my son does too. Number two, now this is something we just talked about recently, the principles of Kwanzaa. Dr. Ron Karenga founded the celebration of Kwanzaa in 1966 to reconnect Black people with their African roots. Kwanzaa's 7 principles, called the Ngozi Saba, are a perfect example of collective core values. Now, we're not talking about in this one a particular collective or grouping of people. Now we're talking about specific values that are present throughout the Black community. Number 1, umoja, unity, striving for and maintaining unity in the family, community, nation, and race. Number 2, I'll go with the English first, self-determination, kujichagulia. I love saying that word though. Defining, naming, and speaking for ourselves. Number 3, collective work and responsibility, ujima, building and maintaining our community together. Number 4, cooperative economics, ujamaa, supporting and building Black businesses and economies. Number 5, purpose, nia, working toward the collective vocation of restoring and building our community. Number 6, creativity, kuumba, leaving the world better than we found it. And the last one, number 7, faith, imani, believing in ourselves, our people, and our future. These principles just resonate deeply with many Black people and embody the shared values that uplift us. Some will resonate more deeply than others, but all of them are within us, I mean, personally, self-determination resonates deeply with me. And I know that unity is more important to other people. It's important to me too. But as I said, we're not a monolith. We're not all the same. Things are going to resonate more deeply or less deeply, but it's all still there. Yeah, we're not this big lump and monolith that thinks and acts the same. People like to think of us that way, but we're not. But yet I do believe that these principles, the Ngoza Saba, are deeply within us as individuals and as a collective. Kwanzaa is becoming more popular, but it's still not recognized by mainstream white society as a, in quotes, legitimate holiday. This is one way in which white society undermines Black collectives and Black core values. Number 3, the Black Panther Party. One of the greatest Black collectives. Founded, again, in 1966, the Black Panther Party outlined its goals and values in a 10-point program. These points emphasized justice, equality, education, housing, and an end to police brutality. The party's free breakfast programs and community clinics reflected values of collective care and responsibility. However, of course, here we go. The Black Panther Party faced relentless opposition from the United States government, particularly the FBI's COINTELPRO program, and that sought to dismantle the party and discredit its leaders. In September 1968, FBI Director, the infamous J. Edgar Hoover, described the Black Panthers as, in quotes, the greatest threat to internal security of the country. But despite these attacks, the party's 10-point program, which demanded freedom, employment, education, and, as I said, an end to police brutality, that 10-point program remains a blueprint for collective empowerment and justice. Unfortunately, and it makes me so angry, the FBI killed or imprisoned many of its leaders, infiltrated the Panthers' meetings, and undermined their work that they were doing. This is an example, again, of how Black collective core values are punished and destroyed and absolutely targeted. Well, then we have the Black churches and Black civil rights movements. The Black church has historically been a cornerstone of our collective values. During the civil rights movement, organizers like the SCLC, Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, operated on shared principles of justice, faith, and collective responsibility. Wow, here's one that is finally getting discussed now: Black Wall Street and economic cooperation. Communities like Tulsa's Black Wall Street thrived because of cooperative economics and shared goals. These values and goals, economic empowerment and solidarity, were so threatening to white society that they led to violent destruction. There have been many, many, many other communities, Black communities like Black Wall Street, some that were developed immediately following the period of enslavement, and they were located throughout the country. Rosewood is another example, of a community like this, but there were others. Altadena, a recent example. Many people don't know about this thriving Black community in California, and unfortunately, it's been nearly destroyed by the recent fires in Los Angeles. Unfortunately, many residents were killed in the fires because, unlike in predominantly white areas, evacuation orders were delayed or not given. Other Black communities were destroyed by violence from racist white citizens in the area, but these communities have been developed and were thriving for many years because of their collective core values and their commitment. These stories of how white people attack these communities with impunity haven't been fully investigated or documented and discussed, and certainly there haven't been any reparations. Now, another one close to my heart, the HBCUs. The historically Black colleges and universities are a major example of a thriving Black collective that has endured and evolved to meet the needs of Black students for generations. With more than 100 HBCUs across the United States, these institutions provide not only an excellent education, but also a community that is welcoming, safe, and uplifting. HBCUs foster a sense of belonging, cultural pride, and empowerment that extends far beyond graduation. For many alumni, their HBCU becomes a lifelong collective that connects them to a supportive network of fellow graduates who have similar values and experiences. HBCUs are unfortunately facing significant challenges, including underfunding, systemic inequities, and declining enrollment in a society that often undervalues their contributions. And the U.S. government has, of course, taken away a lot of money from HBCUs and questioned a lot of their accreditations, too. But despite these obstacles, HBCUs do remain a cornerstone of Black education and empowerment, embodying collective core values such as unity, resilience, learning, and the pursuit of excellence. So do you know what time it is now? You guessed it, it's time for our first breather break. This is a minute when I stop talking and just take a minute to breathe. This gives both of us, all of us, a chance to process this information and honor our presence in this space. When things get intense, I like to breathe. I hope you do too. Let's start now, and I will see you in a minute. Hey, Aquaba back. Welcome back. I'm Ama Robin and Asante Sana. Thank you, fam, for staying with me. I hope that you did a bit of breathing or took some other self-care steps. I did, and I'm ready to get back into it. So we've talked about collectives and how their core values and how the collective itself has been attacked. So let's actually talk, though, about how core values, collective core values, can empower us. You know, collective core values aren't just historical concepts. They're living principles that guide us today. They complement our individual core values by connecting us to something bigger than ourselves. But here is how some specific ways how they can empower us. You know, like unity creates strength. By staying united, we amplify our voices and build movements that demand justice and equality. Resilience through solidarity. We're stronger when we're together. When we work together, we draw strength from one another, even in the face of systemic oppression. Guidance for action. That's right. Shared values like Ujima, collective work and responsibility, and cooperative economics, Ujamaa, guide us in building strong communities and supporting Black businesses. And of course, cultural pride and connection. These collective values remind us of our heritage and inspire us to honor our ancestors through our actions. So that brings us to, actually, I think, a really good point. How can we honor and live by these values today? We've seen how one connects us to another and kind of synergistically makes us stronger and makes us more united. But how can we honor and live by these values today? Well, finding and empowering Black collectives is one of the most meaningful ways to live by collective core values. And there are so many different Black collectives reflecting the diversity and richness of our communities. As I said earlier, we're not some lumping monolith. That's right, not some lumping monolith. We can be a part of many communities whose collective values we support, many different collectives. Okay, and I can get personal with this. I belong to several Black collectives. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. My Sisters Gathering is a group of Black women that we all get together and talk about whatever we want to talk about. Black storytellers. That's right. Black expats, because I live outside of the United States. My multi-generational family. As I said, my husband and I will live with my mother and our son. And some Black and political literary groups too. I'm a part of those groups too. So I support their core values because they align with my own. But I also support other Black collectives, such as Black men's groups and Black queer gatherings and Black writers, Black booksellers, and lots of others. So we can be part of a lot of different collectives, but I think it's so important to also recognize and support other Black collectives, even if we're not directly involved in them. But that is just me. I would love to know about you. So what Black collectives do you belong to or that you support? You really give that, you can share that with me. I'd love to hear about that. But my point is really just to think about that so you can actually think about what core values are in those collectives and how you can honor and support them and other Black collectives and their core values. Remember, our collective work and values empower us every day. And we want to empower others too. Now, how else can we support Black collectives? In one crucial way, and this came to me and realized, wow, this is something that really isn't recognized. One crucial way is by creating and supporting safe spaces for Black people. These spaces, whether they're physical, virtual, or community-based, offer sanctuary from racial hostility. They offer a place of healing. And they offer an environment where we can just fully be ourselves without judging, without being judged, or without feeling fear. Safe spaces can be found in lots of different places, in Black-owned businesses. I know when I walk into a Black restaurant, I automatically walk into a space where I feel welcomed and supported, and I don't have to look over my shoulder or think, wow, or they're going to try to give me a bad table. There are different community centers and online groups and informal gatherings where we can connect, where we can rest, where we can strategize, the work is still there, and where we can celebrate. That's right, we can feel the joy. Supporting these spaces means showing up. It means contributing resources and defending their existence against the attempts to erase or co-opt them. And we know that happens. We've talked about some of that earlier. But we know that happens because we've also seen it. And by showing up, by contributing and amplifying their work, we also support and amplify their values and their existence. How else can we acknowledge and respect collective core values? This may be controversial here, but I'm going to say it. By rejecting the destructive individualism of white Western society. Rejecting that destructive individualism of white Western society. I repeated that for emphasis. And recognizing that core values are not just for individuals. They're also for groups. And this makes them and us even more powerful. And specifically, and I'm going to put this into the show notes, so you don't need to remember this, but I'm just going to mention a few specific ways, to educate yourself and others. Learn about the principles of Kwanzaa. Learn the Black Panther Party's 10-point program. And look at other examples of collective core values. And share this knowledge with your family and your community. And as I said, you can find this in the show notes. I have a PDF there. You can also support Black collectives. Join or just social support organizations, movements, or businesses that align with your values. Whether it's through activism, donations, or participation, doesn't really matter. Collective action makes a difference. Also, celebrate cultural traditions. Recognize and honor the cultural practices that reflect our collective values. Family reunions, community events, all kinds of different things. Like I just mentioned with Kwanzaa. But it's also, remember Juneteenth. That is our holiday and our remembrance place. It's not theirs. MLK Day, Martin Luther King Day, is also a day that recognizes service. Harriet Tubman Day, honoring Black women with a day of rest. Thank you. And there are others. I list some of them on the website and the Instagram page, so let's just remember them and their collective values and how we can be supportive of those. And you can't get around this. Live the values daily. Make collective core values part of your everyday life. Support Black-owned businesses. Mentor younger generations. Volunteer. Support protest activities. Visit prisons. Hire released prisoners. Vote. Run for elected office. Or engage in other community building activities. There are a lot, and I'm sure you can think of other ways to support our communities. In light of recent events, and I'm talking about the election in the U.S., new threats and challenges have emerged that put our freedoms and our rights at risk. From attacks on voting rights and the erasure of Black history in education, policies that disproportionately harm Black communities, we are witnessing a concerted effort to weaken the progress that we've made. In these times, collective work and values are more important than ever. And while individual efforts are powerful, they really are, it's through unity and shared action that we've historically created lasting change. So we have to strengthen and support Black collectives, as they're going to be just essential in navigating these new challenges and securing our future. So let's think of ways that we can work together and support each other. These recent events show that we can't rely on or depend on others who have their own agenda, or who aren't willing to confront the white supremacist patriarchal structure. Our strength has always come from within our communities. Yes, others have helped. Allies are important, and I appreciate the work of allies. But our shared values, our sacrifice, and our work have created the change that we want and that we need. Well, I am almost finished with my cinnamon coffee, so maybe we should start to wind this down. And I know I've talked a lot. There's been a lot here, and collective core values, I feel, are just not spoken about enough. Collective core values really are the foundation of Black empowerment and Black liberation. They remind us that our strength lies not just in who we are as individuals, but in the communities and connections that connect and uplift us. As we guide and navigate the chaos of living in a world that often seeks to divide us, these values anchor us in our truth and guide us towards a future of justice, resilience, and unity. So I'm going to say a big Asante Sana. Thank you so much for being in the building and showing the courage and commitment to talk about these issues. Let me know what collective core values resonate with you. How do you live by them? What do you support? What do you find troubling? I know we're not a monolith. We're not all the same. That's why I'd love to hear your thoughts and your ideas and hear about what you're doing, because that's how we connect and that's how we get stronger. If you want to keep discussing or reading about these issues, then please subscribe to my weekly Black Empowerment newsletter, The Normal Beat. We discuss lots of different issues there, and you can get your dose of Black empowerment every single week. There's never a dull moment, but there'll be lots of powerful and uplifting moments. You can subscribe at the Espresso Talk Today website at espressotalktoday.com or on Instagram at my page called Ama Robin L. That's Ama, A-M-A, underscore, R-O-B-I-N, underscore, the letter L. You can also join me on Instagram to discuss these issues and share your thoughts and just find an uplifting and safe space where you're valued and heard. Again, find me on Instagram at Ama Robin L. I'm Ama Robin for Espresso Talk Today. And remember, now more than ever, strength, soul, and reparations. Ashe, community.